Well, why don't we get started?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Okay. So, guys, thank you for signing up for our first ever, hopefully, of many Zoom, I guess, pizza classes. We're going to do. Obviously, it's not as hands-on as if you were here, but we're going to make dough for you guys today and make dough balls for you, and then show you guys how to make a pizza. And then we're going to have a lot of questions and answers at the end. So if you have questions, write them down now. You can put them in the box up top there, and we'll make sure we get to everyone we can, okay? And hopefully we'll answer a lot along the way. Excuse me for 1 second. So you guys ready to get started? So I thought I just actually had a dough cold fermenting. First, we're going to talk about making dough. And I know it's difficult for everyone to get flour these days. And I should probably introduce myself to those guys who don't know me. My name is Andris Lagston. I am the founder and the creator of The Baking Steel and the Baking Steel Company. Got Chef Craig here with us, who's kind of on the panel. He's going to help us along the way here too with all the questions. This is the Baking Steel Test Kitchen, where we hold, it's two things. It's our office, and it's also where we hold our pizza classes every week, where we learn the art of making pizza, which is what we're going to do right now. Sound good? So I know a lot of people are having trouble getting flours these days. I'm getting a lot of questions on like ingredients, because we recommend in our 72-hour dough recipe that we do, a bread flour, a higher protein flour. If you cannot find that these days, that's okay. All-purpose will work. We just don't like to do as long a fermentation with the all-purpose. So maybe a 24-hour versus a 72-hour. A couple of things. Let's make some dough first, okay? Couple of things we need to have is we need to have a digital scale, because we need to measure all of our ingredients by weight. If I had asked somebody to grab me 4 cups of flour, they're going to stick a container into the bag, and what happens, each container, each scoop is going to be different, right? So everyone's 4 cups is going to be off by quite a bit. So if we measure everything by weight, we're going to be right on the money every time. So I want to say it's a mandatory piece of equipment, a digital scale. And I've made this dough probably, gosh, what do you think, Chef? 5,000 times? Maybe not that. It's a lot. I use the scale every single time, just because I think it's important. And I want my dough to always be the same. This is called a micro scale. And what this does is this measures to the 1/100th of a gram. When we're dialing in our yeast, it is a micro amount. So it's like, those yeast packages, those little foil packages are 2 1/4 teaspoons or 9 grams. Well, this recipe that we're making right now calls for just 1 gram. So we need to really dial that in, and it's a small amount. These micro scales come in handy. These are all like $20 on Amazon. So we got our ingredients to make a dough is flour, salt, water, and yeast. When I make my water here, in our town, our water is not super great, so I always filter it. I cook with filtered water because I drink it that way. So I just think it's better. I've got everything pre-measured here. I've got the flour, and all I'm going to do is quite literally this is so simple. I'm going to take my dry ingredients and dump them into this bucket, and my yeast, I'm going to show you that small amount. Can you see that? It's literally 1 gram into a bucket, and now I'm just going to kind of whisk it together, the flour and the salt and the yeast. And on a scale level of 1 through 10, making pizza dough is about a 2. So if anybody is nervous about it or hasn't done it before, get it over that first time. It's so simple. You'll be so proud of yourself. So once I whisk all my dry ingredients in, I take my water and I literally just pour it in. This is room temperature water. It's not hot, it's not cold, it's room temp. And now I just take my spoon and I mix. And what I'm gonna do, once I get this thing started, I'm gonna dump this out onto my countertop here. And I'm gonna, you guys have heard that term, kneading. I'm gonna scrape out my bowl first. This is just like the Rachel Ray show, all my stuff here. Isn't that great? You guys, any good questions coming along the way, Chef, that we could answer, you think, or are we good?
Yeah, you could talk maybe a little bit more about your flour and what other types you can get.
Great. Yeah, good questions. So I'm using centralmilling.com. I'm using it's called High Mountain Organic High Gluten Wheat Flour. It's a beautiful flour. It's our go-to for all of our pizzas. I highly recommend organic flour. And again, I know in this current situation, it's very difficult to find the exact flour that you want. So you might want to go to Whole Foods or shop online. We use a product called Janie's flour last week. Let me actually pull that up. This Janie's Mill, this is a beautiful flour that they sent us. I used it for English muffins and it was gorgeous. My kids loved it and devoured it. That's an organic as well. King Arthur obviously makes great products. And then just, shop at your local market. Costco's got them. King Arthur has a few different brands. But just try and experiment. One thing you don't want to be afraid to do is, blend. Blend like an all-purpose and a bread flour together. Take some 00 and blend it with your bread flour. Or just try different combinations. One thing I love to do is sometimes I'll add 10% of spelt flour into this, like an old ancient grain into my flour, just to kind of give it a nice little flavor. We'll do that with a pita bread or with English muffins. We'll just tweak it. There's no right or wrong answer. Experiment. That's all that we do almost every day. Just keep experimenting. Let me get back to this dough here first. Oops, back it up a little bit here. Yes.
Hey, real quick to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Just want to let everybody know that we're going to be posting the video up after, and we'll also post recipes. We'll send you guys a follow-up email with links to all these sources and everything that he talks about.
Oh, good question. Yeah, good point.
There's no need to take notes. You'll get a whole follow-up email with basically everything that we'll talk about today and more. Yeah,
and some techniques, all this stuff. Totally. Good point. Great. Good job. So this is the flour mixture. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to literally just lightly press it, and they call this kneading. These bench scrapers are awesome, by the way. Just helps you get underneath there and kind of fold. And all I'm going to do is press this together. I want to combine the flour and the water together. I typically will use a timer for 2 or 3 minutes. And that's about all it takes. And I'm really pushing out and squishing some of those dry clumps. When I do this, you can see it gets sticky on my hand too. That's okay. And when I know this was going to be done, the water will really start to incorporate into the flour, and it really starts to get sticky on my hand. And you can see the stickiness here. That's great. And I'm just going to give it a few more presses to make sure I don't have any dry clumps of flour inside this dough. That makes sense? And it's done. So that's been about, probably, I don't know, I didn't time it, but I'm going to guess maybe 2 minutes. I'm going to put it back into this bowl right here. I've got lids on these, which is great. If you don't have a lid, that's fine. Saran wrap it. We want this thing airtight. And now what we're going to do is I got some flour over here. What we're going to do now is ferment the bulk. So this is the bulk of the dough. So we call this the bulk ferment. Pretty simple. we've got a couple different options on this. Again, this is going to be an experiment. It depends on when you're doing this. I personally love to leave a bulk fermentation for at least 12 hours. So if I do this first thing in the morning, when I go to bed at night, I'm going to put this container into the refrigerator. So I'll do a combination of maybe 12 hours room temperature, and then I might do 3 days in the fridge, or I might do directly into the fridge. If I'm going out for the full day, I might just stick this in the fridge and forget about it until the day I make pizza. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. So the bulk, or you can just do 24 hours at room temperature. This thing's gonna double in size. If I go straight to the fridge, it's gonna rise, but it's not gonna double in size so quickly because it's so cold. So it's gonna slow the fermentation process. It's still gonna rise, but just not as much. I hope that makes sense to everybody. All right, so bulk dough. So guess what? I'm just gonna wash my hand off really quick. Because we had class today, we did a bulk fermentation. Boom. You can see how this is the same exact size. I did this last night, and you can see it's doubled in size. So I did about I want to say a 10-hour room temperature rise, and then I put this container last night. I put it into the refrigerator because I find the next step, which is balling up your dough, to be a lot easier when the dough is cold. Does that make sense? Cold dough is easier to ball. You can see and you can smell. You can smell the fermentation, and we get a lot of questions on, why do you ferment your dough for so long? Well, guess what? This one I just mixed, right? It smells like flour and water. There's basically no flavor yet, right? However, after 24 hours, I've got the beginnings of this fermentation, right? It smells like I could smell some alcohol going, basically building up flavor. So that's 24 hours, and this dough is going to taste actually really good today. I like to give it even a couple of more days. So what I'm going to do is remove this. I'm going to make some dough balls, and then we'll put those dough balls into the refrigerator for a couple of days. I'm going to show you guys how I do this. You're going to need your scale again. We talked about glutens a little bit. See those gluten strands? I hope that's focusing. Is that focusing in pretty good, Chef?
Yeah, you're good there, man.
Awesome. Those are our gluten strands, your proteins. And now what I'll do is I'm going to divide this up and make a dough ball. So I like to portion my doughs around 250 grams. So let's see how I can do here. That's 262. You know what? I'm going to go with it. That's fine. Make two more. I'm going to make some big dough balls. This will make 3 big doughs, which is pretty awesome. They're all about 270. Now, because this dough is super sticky, let me see if I can get this up a little bit higher. This dough is extremely wet and sticky. So with clean hands, I want to take some flour and flour my hands up generously, like really generous. I don't want this thing sticking at all. I'm going to put this dough ball into the flour and just coat it really nicely. And I know a lot of people have a problem with this, or a challenge. Don't be shy with the flour, okay? We're not going to alter the recipe too much. The goal is not to have it stick to your hands. So once we flour this up generously, I'm going to pick it up and just fold it in half. I'm going to turn it 1/4. I'm going to grab each side and lightly just press in, like really gently. This is the part when we teach the classes that people think that this is a stress ball. It's not, it's dough. We want to essentially make a ball. And the way we do that is by getting a little bit of the air out of it and trapping all those gluten strands inside the ball. I do this by the same sequence over and over again. So I press my fingers into the seam and then I close it. And I turn it, I grab each side again, I press in lightly, like a heart almost, and I close it. And if it gets a little bit tacky or sticky, just keep some flour on your hands. We don't want this thing sticking. Now this dough is cold, so because it's cold, it's not as sticky. It's a little trick, right? Turn, so press in and close. I do this about, I want to say 25 times. Each time I do this, I'm getting a little bit of the air out. If you can see, the backside of this is smooth like a baby's butt. And I've got this seam here that's always facing the same way. And now what I'll do, I'll put that seam side, smooth side into my palm here, and I'm gonna close it up, almost like a dumpling. You can see that? Like a mohawk, right? And I can be aggressive on the pinch. But you can see at the end, I've got this beautiful dough ball, right? Now, a few of you guys I know will not have time to make your own dough. So you'll go to the supermarket and you buy their dough, which is great. One thing that the supermarket does is they mix their dough in those big mixers, then they portioned it off like I did here. And they'll take these portions and they'll stick these in plastic bags, and that's what you take home with you. So when you get this big pound of dough, they didn't make dough balls, so what happens is those glutens and the gases are really just gone, and there's gonna be no way to really stretch this dough out because it's gonna have no texture at all. You probably noticed that when you take the dough home from the supermarket, you gotta really fight it, and you get a rolling pin, it just keeps continuously shrinks back down again. So what we've found is buy supermarket dough, divide it in half, and make a dough ball, just like this. And you'll find that this now, you've got all those air pockets and gluten strands stuck inside this ball. It's gonna proof and rise, and it's gonna stretch really nicely, like super, like soft and supple, just like what we got here. Does that make sense? All right, we're gonna take a little pause there. Maybe we can do a little question and answer now before we get into making pizza. So these would go into the refrigerator in what we call delis. I put a little bit of olive oil here, or I'll just leave these out and make pizza later, right? Let it proof, airtight. You wanna cover it with like plastic wrap or something.
What about freezing that?
Great question. If I'm freezing this, so if you can watch me do this, I'm gonna fold it in. If I'm gonna freeze dough, I'm gonna do it right now. So this has been a 24-hour ferment. I'd prefer at least 48, but even 24, ball it up, freeze it right away. That's the best time. Make sense?
Yeah, and when we're making the dough, whether it's through balling or the bulk stage, if we're getting like a little like dry crust on top, what's the best way to counteract that? I assume it's just a tighter lid or plastic wrap. But
if you're getting a crust on here, that means
or even in the bulk,
it's getting air. You're getting air, and air is hitting it, and it's going to create a crust. So a wet towel's cool, or just plastic wrap. Leave some room in there for it to breathe and grow, but just cover it, make it airtight. That's the important thing. These look nice, don't they? Beautiful. I'm gonna do one more here for you guys too. Again, if it gets stuck to your hands, more flour. Cold dough is better than room temperature dough for making balls. Flour it up, fold it in half, turn. Each side is press in lightly and close. I'm knocking air out of this dough, right? Press in. And I'm making, each time I do this, it's getting more and more taut. If it gets stuck to my hands, just flour them up. You can see my hands are not, it's not getting stuck at all. Cold dough is much better to ball. Cool? Put this in my palm, close it up, I've got this nice, beautiful dough ball. Isn't that gorgeous? All right. Any other questions, Chef, so far?
How long to proof grocery store dough if you're gonna reball it?
Ah, that's a great question. So if I went to the market, let's say I got home at noon, I'm going to divide it up, make my dough balls, right? And then what I'll do, I'll put those dough balls into the actually, I'm not going to put them anywhere. I'm just going to leave them on the counter for like 4 hours, 5 hours. They're going to double in size, and then what will happen is the dough is going to stretch really beautifully. Cool.
Last one before you get in there. We were talking about freezing. How about defrosting?
Ah, good question again. So I will take, if I was in a deli like this, and Ziploc makes these, and Glad makes these, 2-cup delis, they call them. We'll send you these links on the show notes or the email or wherever it is we do. These will go into the fridge, from the freezer to the fridge for 24 hours. And then by then it'll be nice and defrosted. And again, let it come out 3 or 4 hours before you bake. It'll be beautiful. Cool? Any other questions?
No, I'd say we should move swiftly into making some pizza. Gretchen?
Let's make some pizza. Yeah, it's our favorite time of day, right? For pizza, I've got my oven. You guys see back here? Shout out to Monogram for these beautiful ovens, by the way. Steel on the top rack, steel on the bottom rack. Can you see these? 2 baking steels. That's my setup in every oven. I just love 2 steels because we make a lot of pizza. Preheating for 1 hour at 500 degrees. If you have convection, 100% use it. It's just a fan that blows, and it makes that heat distribute more evenly. 1 hour, yes, you need a full absorption of heat into your steel for ideal pizza making. Does that make sense? The dough has been out at room temperature for probably 2 hours to 2.5 hours. It's just about room temperature. That's just like our bodies. When they're cold, they're stiff. So when they relax and they get warm, like after a sauna or after a yoga class, you feel like supple, right? We want the dough to do the same thing. We put a little bit of olive oil underneath. And so I'm going to just put some flour in front of me here. Is that the right place to do it? That's good, right? This gravity's our friend. I turn this thing upside down. Oil side goes right down into the flour. And it looks like a cloud. Can you guys see? Can you see that, Chef?
Yeah, now you're better, yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to pick this up in one swoop and just flour both sides. That's really just so it doesn't stick. And now my oven's preheating. I've got my dough. I'm going to lightly press into this dough. It's super soft. It's like a cloud. Is that the right word? The cloud? I don't know. It feels like it is. I pick it up, make sure it's not getting stuck. And now, letting gravity do its thing, I'm going to put this on the back of my knuckles. And I'm going to lightly just kind of turn. I'm not really doing anything here. Gravity is doing all of the work. And the secret to a round pizza is to start with a round dough. That's the best. Isn't that beautiful? You can see the bubbles forming. It's really gorgeous. Let's talk about this here. You guys know what this is called? It's a pizza peel. There's 2 kinds. There's wood and there's metal. For launching, I use wood 100% of the time. Because it's wood, it's going to whisk away some of the moisture. Really critical that you have to have one of these, okay? Here's what I'm going to do next. And I always say no to cornmeal because, in our opinion, cornmeal is corn. And what it does is it tends to burn in a home environment on steel. So we use semolina flour, which is a finer ground. And then I use the flour that's in the dough on my peel. Boom, just like that, right?
Hey, Andres.
Yes.
I think we're a little bit silly to assume that everybody knows what a baking steel is and the difference between the two. So before you bake, you want to kind of go through that?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Good point. So if we have baking steels in the oven, if I don't have a baking steel, I would have a pizza stone, okay? Same thing, preheating for 1 hour. And the difference being that the steel is going to hold the heat a lot more than, say, a stone would. So, for example, when I open this oven up, heat escapes. A lot of heat escapes, right? When I close it, the steel is ultra conductive, so it bounces back to temperature, back to 500 degrees in literally just minutes. Whereas a pizza stone will continuously drop in temperature throughout the evening or the pizza session. Whereas each pizza I make is going to be just as fast as the first. So the first pizza I make I'm going to make a pizza in about 3 minutes for you guys. It'll literally take 3 minutes to bake. Whereas the stone might be, 8 or 9. And then the second pizza might be 10 or 11, if that makes sense. So that's really the biggest, characteristics of the steel that we just love. That answer that, Chef?
Yes.
All right, great. Back to the peel. I've got this thing, flour and semolina flour. That's your lube. That's your ball bearings. You guys remember Chevy Chase? It's all about ball bearings. It looks like I have too much. That's okay. I'd rather have too much than too little, because the goal is to get this dough into the oven at 500 degrees safely and without it getting stuck. So the better you get at this, the less you'll use. I've got my dough stretched out. Isn't that gorgeous? Can you see this? Really pretty. It's got some beautiful holes, structures. And it's really good. It's gorgeous. All right, so I've got my dough stretched out here. I'm going to clean up a little bit here, guys. I'm going to switch my oven because I got my steel preheating for a good hour. I'm going to switch this oven to broil. Because now what I'm doing is I'm going to get some top heat down. My steel's at 500 degrees. I'm going to turn the broiler on, which will get me even hotter than 500. Maybe get me like 550 to 575 for the launch, which is my favorite part. And that helps with that oven spring. Not necessary, just a technique that we love. Tomato sauce, room temperature tomato sauce. Our tomatoes are literally, we're using Jersey Fresh today. And we're going to send you guys links to this stuff. I think they might be sold out, but crushed plum tomatoes that these go, that's it. We add sea salt to this can. That's our tomato sauce. So you can throw your mom's or your grandmother's tomato sauce recipe away. Find your favorite can of tomatoes and add salt. That's that simple. All right. Now before I do sauce, before I do cheese on my pizza, I'm going to make sure my ball bearings are working. This is the most important thing you're going to learn today. A lot of people get stuck. I don't have anything on top, but I'm going to give it a shake. You can see how this dough is loose like a hockey puck? It's sliding. Well, that's good. My ball bearings are working, and now I can put my sauce on top. And here's another critical factor when topping our pizza. And our mantra is less is more, okay? I bring my sauce, I puddle it up in the middle, and I bring it to the edge, but like life, I don't want to go over the edge, right? Hopefully not, because if the sauce spills over, what's going to happen? It's going to get stuck to the peel, and then I'm having a problem. So if that does happen, just pick up that corner and stick your flour underneath there like this. And before I do anything else, I'm going to give it a little shake again. Make sure it's loose like a hockey puck. That makes sense? All right, so got my sauce. Less is more. Remember, there's a lot of water in sauce. So if I put too much on here, it's going to seep through the dough, and this dough's got no chance to cook. Okay? All right, so with that, I've got some whole milk mozzarella that I'm going to grate. Always want to shred your own cheese, okay? Because those little strands, like these strands that you find in the bags, are coated with starch. That's why they don't stick together. And when you cook those strands, they tend to brown super easy. So we like to grate our own cheese. Before I do that, where is my oregano? I like to put some oregano, fresh oregano or dried oregano down on my sauce. Kind of bury it underneath. It smells nice too. All right, so now I've got my cheese grater from like 1920. Look at this thing. Isn't that awesome? Just grate my cheese right on top. These are big strands, which is cool. Check my oven out. My broiler's not on yet, but it should be kicking in a minute. That's the other thing too, is I'm watching my broiler. I'm waiting for that thing to kick in, because that's ideal. And it's go time. I see that broiler kick in, I'm gonna launch. That's when I know the steel is gonna be at its peak in temperature. You guys can see this. It's not a lot of cheese, it's not a lot of sauce. I'm gonna give it a little slide like a hockey puck. Once you gotta let your intuition take over when you're making pizzas, and like I just know intuitively to always shake my pizza before I go into the oven. Really critical. Let's take a look. The broiler is not on yet. All right, so I gotta wait just another minute. So Chef, do you have any questions I can answer before I launch?
Yeah, you want to talk about the New York City water thing?
Ooh, yeah, the New York City water. Well, a lot of rumors going on. I don't know firsthand if the water in New York, I have no idea the chemical makeup of it. However, I do know this. If the water in New York was so special, wouldn't every single pizzeria in New York be just as special? There's probably a little bit more to it. It's something to do with called fermentation and ingredients, like the flours that they're using. That's my spin on it. I don't think it's the water. Boiler check. Still not going. Still wait. Another minute. I've had these ovens on for a few hours. So they're almost probably too hot. Once that thing kicks in, I'm gonna launch it in. Anything else, Chef?
Dun, 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 dun.
Who's hungry? Anybody?
Let's go with the thin crust pizza. In our book, talk a little bit about that. We got the all-purpose flour in there, kind of the difference between that.
Yeah, so yeah, we might soften that flour just a little bit. A couple of ways of doing it. One, I can just roll this stuff out with a rolling pin, or you can change the recipe. The idea with thin crust is it's thinner. It's actually really, really good. We blast our steel, get it really hot just to make that bottom even crispier. It's awesome. It's great style for sure. Let me just double check my oven here. We're not cooking on yet. I don't know how long has that been, like 4 minutes?
Yeah, at least.
Come on, oven. These things are finicky. Sometimes they don't, I have to learn the cycle. Once that thing kicks in, I know I can launch. I can do it before the launch too, but I'm just trying to make it awesome.
Dun, 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 dun. What else?
Anybody else? Ask some questions. Go for it. I think I heard something kick in. The cheese. Again, if I'm waiting around for an extended period, just going to shake this thing a little bit. Just like that. Right? Give a little shake. I'm going to bake this for probably 4 minutes. 2 minutes on the top, and I'm going to move it to the bottom steel for 2 more minutes.
What if you only have one steel?
All right, so our broiler's on. Let me just launch this thing. It's a great question. I might just use one steel. So here I'm going to do. I'm going in the oven. I'm going to shake it first. It's loose, right? When I open the oven up, I slide my rack back if you can. back of the peel to the back of the steel and just shake it off like a hockey puck. Just like that. Close it. And now for the, because the broiler's on, I'm gonna put the timer on for 2 minutes because I don't want too much broiler. After 2 minutes, I'm gonna open the oven up, give this thing a rotation, maybe one spin, pizzas around the broiler just to kind of promote even heating. And then I'll turn the broiler off and finish it for the next, maybe 90 seconds. So we're looking at like 3.5 minutes in a home environment, which is pretty awesome, pretty fast. And which means it's going to be an airy and crispy crispy on the outside and light and airy on the inside. I can smell it. Can you guys smell that? They have an app for that yet?
What was I just going to say? Dun, 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 dun. Which rack should the steel be on?
Oh, great question. I like to flirt with danger. I like to bring it as close as I can to the broiler, but make sure you have enough room for this peel to get inside the oven, right? We're fortunate these racks slide out. If they don't slide out, so be really careful, but you got to make sure, just practice, You can practice when the oven's not on. You can kind of see if you have enough room. Put some Play-Doh on there or something. See if you have enough room to get it into the oven. It's a good, yes. Anybody else?
What's the point of the steel on the bottom?
Well, if I'm making pizzas for like, say 10 people, I'm going to cook that top pizza for 2 minutes, move it to the bottom steel, and then I can actually stretch another pizza out and launch that one back on the top steel. So I'm essentially making 2 pizzas at one time. And I can continue that every 2 minutes, essentially. Am I doing that right? Every 2 minutes, I have a new pizza coming out of the oven, which is extremely fast. I'll be working up a sweat. All right, let's take a peek. That's 2 minutes in. You can see, oh wow. So you can see I've got a lot of color. You can't see. I'm going to show you guys. I've got a lot of color up top, right? So I got my broiler on just to protect myself. I'm going to move to the bottom steel and turn the broiler off. Now, because I had so much color, I timed it really well. Put my timer on for 90 seconds, by the way. I don't want to forget. Because the broiler was still on, if I had left it on the top steel, I would probably end up burning it too fast on top. So 2 things I could have done. I could have turned the broiler off faster, maybe after a minute, which I didn't do. So I'm just moving to the bottom steel where now there's no direct heat, so I'm not worried about the top burning. The bottom's gonna now catch up to the top, and 3.5 minutes later, we're gonna have a gorgeous pizza. And I'm not going to share it. Anybody else have a question? Smells.
Some people talk to them about the big green eggs, just kind of elevating it up as high as you can. You don't need to cook with 900 degrees, right?
No, that's a great question. Yeah. So green eggs, same. In fact, almost drop it down to 400 degrees. Remember, the beauty of the steel is it heat transfers. It does at 500 degrees what a wood oven does at 900. So if you put a steel at 900, it's going to be way too hot for food. So 500 is the sweet spot. And maybe in a green egg, you want to even try at 400, if you would. And once you find that sweet spot, it's awesome out there on those. It's great.
We had someone that just joined saying they missed some of it. We'll be doing another one of these.
I think we're going to have we'll have a recording of this on YouTube. So you guys can watch this again, and we're going to send a follow-up as well. So it's 3.5 minutes. Let's check our baking steel pizza. I mean, it is, I'm going to try to show you guys this. You can see the action going on here. It is bubbling up. It's pretty awesome. Let me pull this out and show you guys. I mean, it's really beautiful. And the bottom is cooked really well. The top, I'm still on the cheese to slide. It's got some really great bubbles. It is beautiful. And that's literally 3.5 minutes of just awesomeness. Please grab my slicer. My rocker. And just show, I want to, if you guys can you see still? Let me see. Can you hear this? Probably not doing a good job of capturing that. It's just awesome. It's almost too hot to eat right now. I'll leave that right there for you guys. Any other questions? Let's go through some more questions. And let me keep this pizza here for you guys.
Can you explain how basically like the steel is absorbing heat in the oven and how it's actually like leveling off the heat in your oven? Not really getting hotter than what you're setting it to, but it's just keeping it more even, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the steel, because it's such a mass of energy, essentially, it's like on my rack full time, like 100% of the time. It's just a nice even heat. Once it gets to 400 degrees, it stays at 400 degrees, which is really beautiful. So if I'm using a sheet tray, my wife will ask me, hey, can you roast some vegetables for me? I'll take this sheet tray of, like, call it broccoli, and I'll just stick it right on top of my steel. And I'm going to get the benefit of all that heat underneath just blasting into whatever is on top of the sheet tray. It's amazing. So everything's better from pizza. Yeah. We do cookies on there, pies on there, vegetables on there. And that's inside the oven. If we move that to the outside on the grills or on the stovetop, it's unbelievable. Like the searing that you can do with steaks and the smash burgers that we're trying to post on Instagram quite often. But it's amazing what that piece of metal can do in there, the baking steel. It's great. Anybody else have a question?
Best way to clean the steel?
Super great question. My favorite tool is this. Soap and water, first of all, always. A bench scraper. These things are amazing. I'll just literally scrape my steel. And if anything gets tacky on there, I use what they call these earthstone cleaning bricks. They're grill bricks. So these go outside in your grill. It's made out of recycled glass. We do not make these. We buy them on Amazon. They are just awesome to smooth out your surface. I use it on my baking steel griddle almost daily. They do wear out, so we got to be careful, but they are just awesome for almost anything, but especially the baking steel. Who else?
Talking about the peel. Some people have the baking steel peel, how to treat that, oiling it, etc.
Yeah, good question. Same thing, soap and water. It's got to be dry, just like steel. And then just take some mineral oil from time to time and coat it. It just helps absorb, kind of like you would your butcher block, your wood blocks as well. It just coats it, protects it, helps it last forever and stay beautiful. Mineral oil, you can buy that on Amazon too. Common theme, Amazon. Right? Anybody else?
We're asking people how to, what else we can do for next videos. Some people are saying calzone, bread, etc. English muffin might be a fun one.
That's a great, guys. If you guys want to see more videos like this, if it's helpful, this is our first one, so we're learning too. Your feedback would be awesome. What you want to see next, we'd love to set up another one for next week. English muffins comes to mind. Those are legendary, guys. And pizza, by the way, is legendary. This is unbelievable. Actually, you know what? I hate to do this, but I'm going to take a bite. So good. Unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of people want to see the English muffins. Might have to do that one next week.
We can do that next week. Yeah, totally. Anybody else?
Thickness of steel.
So good.
Thicker the steel, the more heat, the more mass, quicker rebound time.
Yeah.
But most people, majority making 1, 2, 3 pizzas at home, 1/4 inch is way to go.
Yeah, 1/4 inch. The thicker ones are great. The griddles are 3/8 because we needed to make them thicker because of the channel. Personally, if I'm going to do a pizza demo somewhere, if I'm invited, anybody wants to invite me, please do. I will take the 1/4-inch steels with me always. In my carrying case, 2 steels will travel. 1/4-inch. Anybody else? Pizza's good.
Again, we will send, anybody who missed it, we will send an email follow-up to all you guys with links to purchase all the different things that we talked about. If you guys want to buy ingredients, things like that to make this at home. There'll be videos, there'll be tutorials, there'll be recipes, anything else you guys really need.
Yeah, great. And, you know, and we love questions too. Find us on Instagram. We're at Baking Steel. On Facebook. Email us. You can email me, Andres at Baking Steel. Email Craig at Baking Steel. Or just info at Baking Steel. Ask us anything. We love the questions, and we're learning every day too. Our goal is to have you guys make, you know, rock star status pizza at home. And believe me, this is as good as anything I've had anywhere. It's so good when you ferment your breads, and you let them cook properly in a hot oven on a hot baking steel. It is literally legendary. Anybody else? And thank you guys for being here today. This was amazing.
Awesome. I think we're good.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Cheers. Hope to see you on our social channels. Awesome. It's a wrap. Let's eat some pizza. Oh, good. Me stop recording.
And hit leave meeting.